On US sanctioning 50% tariff on India, Roman Babushkin, Chargé affairs of the Russian embassy in India, has moments ago, in fact, said, and I'm quoting him here, if Indian goods are facing difficulties entering the US market, the Russian market is welcoming Indian exports. Listen in.
Tariffs adventures against
Vishal
India to impact on the Russian trade relations. Moreover, we will find the ways out, and if the Indian goods are facing some barriers in other countries, the Russian market will welcome them.
My colleague Vishal Vivek, in fact, joins us for more on this. Vishal, a big statement, in fact, coming there from the Chargé affairs of the Russian embassy in India, especially after the pivotal meeting that Trump and Putin had over the weekend in Alaska, which was followed by Trump meeting Zelensky and European leaders. In fact, he reiterated multiple times that it is only because of levying sanctions on India that Russia was on the negotiating table to begin with. Big statement coming in. Vishal, what are you picking up?
So this is a big moment as far as these trilateral, tit for tats are concerned, because Russia has just, as you mentioned rightly, backed India in this whole tariff war that US started a few months ago, and it has clearly slammed those secondary sanctions that were, set to be levied on August 27th. That they were announced about 2 weeks ago, additional sanctions above those 25% tariffs that were announced about a month ago. So in this whole brouhaha, the Russian envoy has gone on to say that secondary sanctions reflect USA's double standards, and this is also a disrespect of national interest. They have also gone on to say that these secondary sanctions are illegal, and that Russia would never impose these sanctions on BRICS nations. And they've gone on to add that despite tremendous sanctions pressure, Russian economy has thrived, which is correct, because even though Russia has been involved in this 3-year-old war, more than 3 years actually, but the Russian economy has only been progressing. It has propped up in the last 1 year or so. It seems surprising, but that indeed is the case. A lot of jobs have opened up in Russia because of its war economy. So that has happened, and Russia is playing on that and saying that it is USA's double standards that it's asking other countries to pay such high tariffs.
Russia clearly throwing down the gauntlet there to Washington. Vishal, thank you so much for putting all these developments in perspective for our viewers. Meanwhile, India's Chargé affairs at the United Nations on Tuesday highlighted the sexual violence perpetrated by Pakistan ever since 1971 in East Pakistan at that time. Now, while delivering India's statement at the UN Security Council's open debate on conflict-related sexual violence, the Indian representative said that sexual crimes against women from minority communities in Pakistan continue even today, which is deplorable. Listen in.
I would like to briefly address the baseless allegation raised by the delegate of Pakistan. The utter impunity with which Pakistan army perpetrated heinous crimes of gross sexual violence against hundreds of thousands of women in erstwhile East Pakistan in 1971 is a matter of shameful record. This deplorable pattern continues unabated and with impunity to this day. Rampant abduction, trafficking, child early and forced marriages and domestic servitude, sexual violence and forced religious conversions of thousands of vulnerable women and girls as weapons of persecution towards religious and ethnic minority communities are reported and chronicled, including in the recent OHCHR reports. These reports highlight that the vile acts by Pakistan are also validated by its judiciary. It is ironical that those who perpetrate these crimes are now masquerading as champions of justice.
Now we shift our focus to other international stories where the Kremlin has in fact played down talk of an imminent summit between Russian President Vladimir Putin and Ukraine's Volodymyr Zelensky. Now this comes as Donald Trump renewed his call for the two leaders to in fact discuss ending the grinding war in Ukraine, which has, of course, as all we know, been going on for more than 3 years now. Now the push for a bilateral meeting in fact comes after the US President met Putin in Alaska last week. and welcomed 7 European leaders and Zelensky to the White House only this Monday. Trump admitted the conflict was quote-unquote a tough one to solve and conceded it was possible the Russian president was not even interested in ending hostilities. The Russian president on Monday, in fact, told Trump he was open to the idea of direct talks with Ukraine. But the next day, Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov watered down that already vague commitment given to Trump. Meanwhile, listen in to the US president's reaction, followed by the latest remarks from the White House.
It was just a no-no. It was something that was never going to happen. So they asked for it, and they shouldn't have asked for it because it was, very insulting thing. Now, they could have asked for many other things. But the other thing they wanted to do is getting Crimea back, and, that was given. They had built, they were expanding everything and spending a lot of money, all because Barack Hussein Obama gave it away in one of the dumbest real estate deals I've ever seen.
But Mr. President, you got the Article 5 protections, though, for Ukraine. So they're not going to be a part of NATO, but you still got them the same protections.
So they're not going to be a part of NATO, but we've got the European nations, and they'll front-load it, and they'll have some of them, France and Germany, a couple of them, UK. They want to have, boots on the ground. Not in. I don't think it's going to be a problem, to be honest with you. I think Putin is tired of it. I think they're all tired of it. But you never know. We're going to find out about President Putin in the next couple of weeks, that I can tell you. And we're going to see where it all goes. It's possible that he doesn't want to make a deal.
What kind of assurances do you feel like you have that going forward and, past this Trump administration, it won't be American boots on the ground defending that border?
Well, you have my assurance, I'm president, and I'm just trying to stop people from being killed, Charlie. Look, they're losing from 5,000 to 7,000 people a week in that ridiculous war that should have never happened.
The Kremlin seemed to indicate that Putin did not firmly agree to a bilateral. Did he agree to have a sit-down with just Zelensky on the phone?
I can assure you that the United States government and the Trump administration is working with both Russia and Ukraine to make that bilateral happen as we speak.
I understand that the White House is working and allies are working to make this meeting happen, but did Putin promise to do a meeting with Zelensky, a direct meeting, in the coming weeks?
He has, and I just answered that question for you. Franco.
Taking the first big steps to reset the entire trajectory of bilateral relations, India and China have decided to work on a settlement of the boundary question, and an expert group will be set up, in fact, to explore an early solution to boundary delimitation. After PM Modi, External Affairs Minister and National Security Advisor Ajit Doval met Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi, the Ministry of External Affairs issued a statement on Tuesday, and it said that the two sides have decided to resume direct flights at the earliest and increase the scale of Indian pilgrimage to Mount Kailash and Lake Mansarovar as well. Now, PM Modi will attend the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit in China, and the two sides also agreed to the reopening of border trade through the 3 designated trading points.
Mr. Doval, I'm very pleased to meet you again in New Delhi for this round of talks between the special representatives of China and India on the boundary question. The setbacks we experienced in the past few years were not in the interests of the people of our two countries. And then in October last year, President Xi Jinping and Prime Minister Modi had an important meeting in Kazan. That meeting pointed the direction for the development of our bilateral relations and provided impetus for the proper settlement of the boundary question.
External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar began a 3-day visit to Russia on Monday, marking the second high-profile diplomatic engagement between the two nations, following National Security Advisor Ajit Doval's trip to Moscow only 2 weeks ago. Now, these visits, viewers, are intended to lay the groundwork for the upcoming annual Leaders Summit, which will feature Russian President Vladimir Putin traveling to India for talks with PM Modi. Now, the aim is to provide a renewed push to the long-standing bilateral relationship. Jaishankar is visiting at the invitation of Russia's first Deputy Prime Minister, Denis Manturov, and is also likely to, in fact, call on President Putin. Now, a key topic on India's agenda is its continued procurement of energy from Russia. New Delhi is exploring the possibility of securing crude oil supplies at even lower rates. The union government is cleared a rupees 62,000 crore deal on Tuesday to buy 97 light combat aircraft Mark 1A fighter jets for the Indian Air Force. Now, this will be in addition to the already ordered 83 LCA Mark 1A fighters by the government earlier. The first order, for perspective, was worth rupees 48,000 crore. My colleague Vishnu Shom gets you more on this. We shift our focus to West Asia, where more than 1,800 Palestinians have been killed in Gaza while attempting to obtain humanitarian aid since US and Israel-backed private organization Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, that is, was launched. United Nations human rights official has said this in Geneva. The UN official further noted, in fact, that Israel continues to issue evacuation orders to Palestinians, forcing them to move to the Al-Mawasi area, which itself, by the way, has come under Israeli bombardment. Displaced people there face extreme shortage with almost no access to even basic services or supplies. Listen in.
Since the 27th of May and up until the 17th of August, we have documented that 1,857 Palestinians were killed while seeking food, including 1,021 killed in the vicinity of the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation sites and 836 killed on the routes of supply trucks. Most of these killings appear to have been committed by the Israeli military.
We should have focused to Washington, where Donald Trump said Tuesday that a Ukraine peace deal could boost his chances of getting to heaven. Now, he joked that his odds of making it through the pearly gates are currently low. And by the way, this comment comes at a time when his approval ratings, in fact, viewers, are at the lowest at around 40%. Now, the 78-year-old US president has previously said he wants to end Russia's war in Ukraine as part of his bid to also win the Nobel Peace Prize. But only a day after hosting the leaders of Ukraine and several European nations, to be precise, 7 European nations at the White House, Trump said his motivations were not all earthy. Here's POTUS for you.
If I can save 7,000 people a week from being killed, I think that's a pretty... I want to try and get to heaven if possible. I'm hearing I'm not doing well. I hear I'm really at the bottom of the totem pole. But if I can get to heaven, this will be one of the reasons.
A passenger bus carrying migrants recently returned from Iran has collided with a truck and a motorcycle in western Afghanistan, killing at least 71 people on board. Now, the accident occurred late on Tuesday in the Herat province. Among the people killed were at least 17 children. Oh, in the US, the Menendez brothers, or should I say the infamous Menendez brothers, viewers, are set to make their cases for parole starting Thursday. Now, this marks the closest they've been to, in fact, winning freedom from the prison since their convictions almost 3 decades or 30 years ago for murdering their own parents. Eric and Lyle Menendez were sentenced in 1996 to life in prison for fatally shooting their father, Jose Menendez, and mother, Kitty Menendez, in their uptown Beverly Hills mansion in 1989. Now, the convicts were 18 and 21 at the time, while defense attorneys argued that the brothers acted out of self-defense after years of sexual abuse by their father. Prosecutors claimed the brothers killed their parents for the multi-million-dollar inheritance. We get you more.
They will be considered individually and have their hearings through video conference, with the board assessing whether the brothers pose an unreasonable risk of danger to society, if released, considering factors like criminal history, motivation for the crime and signs of remorse, behavior while in prison, and plans for the future. If the parole board decides they should be released, the decision has to be reviewed by their chief legal counsel within 120 days. Then, California Governor Gavin Newsom has the final say and has 30 days to grant or deny them parole.
Congressional lawmakers will get their hands on a first tranche of Epstein files in the coming few days. The House Oversight Committee Chair James Comer, in a statement Monday, said the Justice Department would in fact start to turn over Jeffrey Epstein-related materials this Friday. Now, it's less than 2 weeks after the Kentucky Republican transmitted a subpoena to the agency to demand access to documents connected to the deceased financier and convicted sex offender. Up north, Canada's Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre has won a closely watched by-election in the province of Alberta. Now, this gives him a chance to return to the parliament after suffering a shock defeat in April's federal election. Poilievre finished with 80.4% of the votes after Monday's election in the riding of Battle River Crowfoot in the deeply conservative Western province. Veterans from the United States' 20-year involvement in Afghanistan are telling the commission reviewing decisions that shaped that war that it was indeed hell, but also confounding, demoralizing, even humiliating at times for them. Now, the bipartisan Afghanistan War Commission is aiming to reflect veterans' experiences in a report. Now, this is due to be given to Congress next year. We get you more.
We're an independent legislative commission appointed by a series of different committees, House and Senate, to examine the 20 years of U.S. engagement from 9/11 through the withdrawal in August 21 in sort of all of its dimensions.
Scientists expect Kilauea volcano to again gush lava in the coming days for the 31st time since December, as the mountain lives up to its identity as being one of the world's most active volcanoes. A few lucky residents, meanwhile, and visitors along with them will have a front row view at the Hawaii Volcanoes National Park. Hundreds of thousands, in fact, more will be watching popular live streams made possible by 3 camera angles specially set up by the U.S. Geological Survey. Scientists, meanwhile, say magma has been using the same pathway to get to the surface since December, making the initial release and subsequent episodes all part of the same eruption. Listen in.
It's a great question as to how long this eruption is going to last. I have gone back and forth. I've said, well, this is going to die out. And I've also said, this is going to be the eruption for the rest of my life. So somewhere in between those two things is probably where the answer lies. But right now, and I think this is the fascinating part of what's happening up there in terms of the dynamics,